I'm here. We don't have one of our skinny candles tonight. Oh, play me some mountain music like Grandma and Grandpa used to play. And I'll float on down the river to a Cajun hideaway. I think that's Alabama. Of course it's Alabama, you nitwits! Hey, everybody. I know that. It is a great song, isn't it?
It is a great song. Hey, how are you?
I'm tired.
Why are you tired?
Because I got back from Colorado and I actually unpacked my bags, went to bed at a reasonable hour, and have been normal. I might have to put on my headphones. We might have to start this over, Denise. Because I get I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Are you not hearing that?
I'm not hearing it, but I'm putting my microphone on.
Oh, okay.
I'm just muting. I don't know if that works.
Well, it doesn't sound like it anymore. Maybe we'll be okay. No, I think I'm just trying to use it as an excuse that I went to Colorado, and so I can lax it. You know what I'm talking about? Like, well, I was out of town. I mean, really what happened was that I came home, was like, Jerri, you need to prepare yourself for the week. Don't be an asshole. That was one. Don't be a ninny. And I didn't. I did everything I was supposed to do. And so now I'm finding ways to feel sorry for myself. But I am a little
all
bit
the time.
tired.
I think taking it easy is probably not a bad decision here and there.
Yeah. Today it was a good day for that. I got well, yesterday and today, we of course went right back to riding horses. And, they've been sitting there for several days. And so I got to ride and, we came home with a buckle. And that was incredible. It was incredible. I thought it was so funny when you said, when you said your first comment was, that looks scary.
It
I was like,
does. I mean, the horses are running and I can't even walk on snow and
I
ice, right?
know.
It's all down. So I was like, whoa, that's intense.
Yeah. If you just look at it just for like on surface value and you don't know a lot of anything about it, it definitely, I asked a lot of questions as well the first time. How do you, I mean, my horse can't run in the mud, like how does all this happen? So there's a lot of differences, and the horse is definitely trained for it. And one thing that I really, really like about it is that I've never seen a horse hurt. I've never seen one fall. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying that people are competing at the level that they know they should be at in skijoring. They're not reaching above. They're not, because it's so dangerous that if you even tried to do that, somebody would step up and be like, absolutely not. There's sometimes where people are like, that horse is not safe. You cannot ride that horse. And then they'll lend you one of their horses just so you can stay in the competition. So it's a really awesome community that's very, very focused on the safety of the horse, the rider, and the skiers get the least amount of consideration.
So when you win, does the trio win? The specific horse, the specific skier, and the specific rider?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah. You have a team, and that's your team, is the three of you. And then when you win, the rider and the skier get a buckle, and the horses, they don't care about a buckle. So
They
they
get
don't.
extras though, right? They get like carrots and they get
Yeah,
something, right?
they definitely get extra love of everything because they just ran the crap out of themselves that day. But the cool thing about the guy whose horses that Layla rides, he is a real horseman. He is the real deal, like all the way. And it's so awesome because I know that she's riding horses that are safe, that are that have level heads, and they love to do their jobs. Otherwise, he would not have them there. If they didn't like it and they weren't, he just isn't the kind of person that would make a horse do that. He retired one of his horses this year, um, just because it's not good for him anymore. And he's like, I'm not going to put him through that. So it was definitely
Yeah.
interesting. The one thing that he did say that really stuck out to me, we were talking this morning, and he's like, it really impressed me how focused she was, because Estes Park is very nerve wracking. There are some skid rower competitions where, the crowd is a little bit back a ways from the track, and the speakers aren't so loud. The speakers at Estes Park were deafening. I mean, it was just so loud, and then the crowd is right up on the track, and they're staring at you, and it's not like they're not waiting for you to crash. It's not like that. It's not like NASCAR. They're waiting for you to like pull the big trick and go the fast speed, and so they're all just, and that intensity of that, and just the start gate itself is, you've got this 33-foot rope you have to throw to your skier, and then like, oh, are you good? Okay, I'm good. You're good. Okay, go. And then you take off running full
Wow.
speed in front of 10,000 people. And to go from really that being her, I mean, she's obviously has done barrel races, but that's a very large event. And she was just steely all the way through it. She would finish her race and go all the way back around. I mean, it was complicated. There was tons of people, and she knew exactly what she was doing. It just made me feel really good, because there's a group of sixth grade teachers in Rose Hill, Kansas, that I wanted to be sitting there watching her and be like, "Do you see now what I was saying?"
Oh, that's
She's a
pretty
little
cool that she
anyway.
has that. That actually does remind me of a slight side journey. I think that movement is a drive.
Yeah.
Like, like food
Really?
drive.
Ooh.
So I think movement is a drive. I think about human children, infants, that
Mhm.
kind of obsessive need
Yes.
to use the body.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like up on the couch, off the couch, up on the couch, up the stairs, down.
Hmm.
They obsessively use their bodies. And when I watch my dogs out exercising, I feel like the movement itself is a huge motivator for two of my dogs, not the terrier. But I just think that's really interesting because we don't use it, we don't think about it that way, and I think it's separate from exercise
I
because
love this topic. Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And there's actually a horse lady, Panther Flows. Do you follow her?
What did you say?
Panther, Panther,
Oh.
Flows, Flows. I cannot think of her name, but that'll get you there on
Hmm.
Instagram. And she talks about movement and the link to learning, and
Hmm.
that when you allow movement, it creates the joy in the learning. And it actually gave me something to think about. I first read her talking about that a couple years ago, and I do a lot of moving with my dogs. I don't do a lot of quiet, still shaping,
Hmm.
but when they're moving, they think better. And I know I think better. Now, it could just be because I'm like pretty ADHD, right? So I can't, I gotta move. I gotta,
Hmm.
rock back and forth. Like somebody said to me at my trial this weekend, I can tell you're nervous because you're moving so much. And I'm like, no, I don't always do that. That's like just the way I am. I'm just kind of hyper. But I do think that for some of us, and maybe some dogs, and maybe not others or horses, that movement itself is linked to the learning process.
She's
And I
here,
think it might be at least
Denise.
partly, huh?
She's here.
Who?
Panther.
Oh, she's right
Well,
there.
yeah, she
All
goes,
right.
"Oh my
Well,
God, I got a shout out from Denise."
okay. So we're gonna have you on soon,
Yeah.
okay? And then we'll
Well,
just get you up there and talk about it. But it gave me something to think about. That there might be more to movement than just the link to learning. It might be a basic motivator in and of itself, which is one of the reasons I'm so offended when I hear people keeping dogs in crates, because I think using your body is just fundamental and important.
absolutely.
You
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to use your body. It's the normal thing. And it
Mm-hmm.
links so many parts of the brain to the movement, to the coordination, to all that stuff. That's so good. So I can see the reason I got off on this track is I was thinking about what motivates the horses, but the act of running and racing
Oof.
in and of itself, I think, is probably exceptional. They know if they're winning. When I was
Oh
doing fly
God.
ball, they know if they're winning. You see dogs
Yeah.
that actually look and check to see who's in the lane next to them. Like
Yeah.
they're like, I can take you. And you'll
Mm-hmm.
see them as they're going down and hitting the box. Some of the dogs, they check to see if they're in front.
Yeah.
And I mean, I absolutely believe they understand on some level the idea of being faster, stronger,
Oh,
competitive
oh
in their
yeah.
way, which is
I
pretty cool.
mean, I have heard many people say if you got to get a horse's feet moving or you're not going to get their mind. You know, and
Yes.
I and then they say the opposite thing about mules, oddly enough. You get their mind and then you can get the rest of them because they're so much smarter and they, they're thinking so much more. But it is true. I think what I think about when you talk about that is what recovery is like. And when you're trying to go into recovery from, alcohol, whatever it is, food, I have found that when I was stuck in my mind, like this is something I really used to do. I would be out at a restaurant and I'd start getting, oh God, I'm going to have an anxiety attack, a panic attack. And I wouldn't, normally if I felt a little off, I would probably just grab something to drink. And that would, be my band-aid. But I couldn't do that anymore. And so I would stand up in the middle of restaurants and start doing jumping jacks because I was not going to drink again and I wasn't going to be crazy, because it builds to a point of where you act out in some way, which is what's happening so much with so many dogs. But I would do jumping jacks. I would just stand there until the feeling went away. I didn't care who was looking at me. And then I would stop and I would sit back down and go back into conversation. And my friends were like, whatever, man. You used to get hauled out of here by the police. The least of our worries is jumping jacks. Like,
So
do what
everybody's
you need
going,
to do.
massive improvement.
Yeah,
Massive improvement. This is good.
exactly. I mean, really, I remember making a little video the other day to people about when you're trapped in your mind, you need to move your body. You need to think about your breath. You need to do something that is, I'm not a really a very good sitter stiller either. But there. I think the movement thing, it goes back to that simple phrase I think we've all heard about, like how we need to keep moving or we die or there's some kind of phrasing that I've heard over and over about that, and there is something to that.
I think so for sure. If you don't use your body and your mind and all, then it's going to dissolve. Like we know the body dissolves if you don't use it, right? If you have surgery and you're in a bed for 3 weeks, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
Hmm.
So if you're not actively seeking out information and doing stuff, it doesn't surprise me at all that I think the number I read years ago was that the average person dies some number of years after retirement, and it doesn't matter what age they retire. So it's
Yeah.
just like you just kind of go, yeah, and then you just kind of seek comfort and
Hmm.
close in.
Yeah, so that's a great segue into the next topic is um the seeking of comfort and the being in comfort. What do you think that is creating? What negative consequences do you think that's creating for people and their dogs? And what I let me before I before she's like, oh, what I mean by that is for the people that are listening. An example of that would be, I don't like when it rains, so I don't walk my dog in the rain. I don't like downtown, so I don't take my dog out for very many walks because I don't like my neighborhood. I don't like insert whatever, so I don't such and such with my dog. The dog may not care at all, but it's
So
it's what are our comforts. I don't like being outside when there's bugs,
yeah,
so we don't go on hikes.
I went to a dog show this weekend. Went to a trial, and I do not enjoy dog competitions. I love training my
No.
dogs. I love training my dogs. It's not that I dislike it. It's just it's not my driver. And the reason
Yeah.
I go to competitions is because that's the only way you can test your training. You can think you have it perfect, but there's just something about the outside testing, the standardization of it, the lack of toys, the lack of food, the lack of punishers if you use them. They take all this away, and I find it never fails. Every single time I do it, I learn. I come out of it and I learn. And I don't enjoy the pressure of it, but I can't imagine not having the pressure of it. Because otherwise, I'm going to just spin my wheels. I'm going to work on the wrong things. I'm going to sort of, oh, he knows this, he knows this. And then you go to an event and you're like, okay, wow. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm reinvigorated about training. I'm back in my comfort zone. Training is my comfort zone. But the holes have all been illuminated.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, many of them. And I'm sure the next event will show new holes. But I think it's interesting because it's sort of true that you have to push yourself and then you'll be happy you did. But it's sometimes you just can't. Like, I remember the very first time I was asked to speak at a big conference, my heart was like, absolutely not. Like, that's a lot of, I mean, all those people looking at
Hard no.
me. And so
Yeah.
as I'm cheerfully writing back, I would love to do it. And I'm fighting with my fingers because my fingers are saying, don't do it. I knew I had to just respond and say, I'd love to do this and send the email. So there was no time to think, because I knew I had to do it. Not because I wanted to, but because after I did it, it would be something it would build me as a person.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't die and nothing horrible would happen and my clothes didn't fall off and it was
Mm-hmm.
fine,
Yeah.
And I think maybe it becomes a habit to seek small measured amounts of discomfort because you have a successful history.
Yeah.
Like I remember, because I used to be scared to death to do public speaking and I was doing a fair bit of it. I started writing down on the airplane ride home a little thing about how much fun I had. Because I always had a good time. Because that way, when I was getting scared before the next one, I could go back and read what I said right when it was finished in the
Yeah.
airplane. So,
That's a
because
good
you
idea.
get into that, like, oh, I don't know, maybe it wasn't that good. No, it was fun. You had a great time.
Yeah.
And eventually I just got past it. But I think maybe resilience is built on taking on some tough stuff, succeeding until eventually you just assume you will succeed. And then when things are tough, you can still go back to, I'm going to succeed. I just have to push a little bit harder. And then you do. And you do get there. Not always, but that's okay because you're like, whatever.
Yeah,
I missed that one.
that's exactly how I feel about it too. I feel like, let me shut this door real quick here. I feel like yeah, I think that there is some sort of thing going on. I don't know exactly what we would call it, but we swung too far in this direction of considering our feelings. How do I say this? Um, we just swung back too far in a direction, and I can see that maybe the potential that a dog has is almost kind of limited by their the owner's willingness to step outside their comfort zone in different areas, especially for those dogs that are reactive. And even stepping outside your comfort zone might be something like being consistent, or something like, and now it's just, well, I'm neurodivergent and this is how I am. And it's like, well, that's interesting. I've just noticed, I have just noticed recently that there is this kind of drift towards comfort and identifying ourselves as being a particular way or having a particular thing that then negates us from responsibility or from change. So I'm like, well, I guess if I'm seeing that, maybe I'm doing that somewhere in my life too. So I guess I probably better
I think
think.
if you're not pushed a little, I think it's just the natural condition of any
Yeah.
species to seek comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you have to make a choice to seek challenge and you have to have a reason. So you got a reactive dog and you're like, I'm happy in the house, but my dog is chewing stuff up and is causing me a lot of trouble. So now you have a reason to try to solve it because your dog needs exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to motivate her. But when you have a dog who just sleeps all day, it's like, oh, dog's happy, I'm happy. And I don't even get on people about stuff like that. I'm like, if you're happy, it's working for you, whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think that when people overcome challenges, there's that pride
Mm-hmm.
in the thing you did. And the harder it was, and I was just talking to somebody about this today. I will never say I enjoy challenges because they're going to make me stronger. Challenges suck. I hate it when I don't know how to solve they do. When
Yeah.
I don't know how to solve my dog training problem and I'm spinning and I go to a show and the shit hits the fan,
Mm-hmm.
there's my one. I'm not having a good time with it.
Yeah.
But I also recognize this is just the way it is. You got to go through things
Mm-hmm.
sometimes and then put in the hard work, the mental work to try to figure it out. And that's okay. That's like part of that process, right?
Yeah, I think the more you do that, I've noticed just about myself, the less likely I am to run away from it. And the more, and that turned into sometimes I do seek out things that I know, well, not sometimes, a lot of times, things that are going to be really particularly challenging. I think that's probably part of horses, why I like horses so much, is because it's a lot of pomp and circumstance. It's a lot of like, yes, I want to ride my horse today. What does that mean? That means that I have to go out in the cold, in the mud, because it's all the snow melted. So now it's back to the swamp of cold sadness, and I got to do all this stuff. I got to pick his feet out. That takes 15 minutes because there's mud and rocks and poo, crammed up in there. I've got to brush him. I got to do all this stuff. Get this big saddle out and throw it on just to enjoy my, 30, 45 minutes on horseback. I have to do all of this with my daughter, and we're, bumping into each other. And it's very, when people say, like, beware of how you use your dopamine, such a wonderful way to use my dopamine, because I have to work so hard to get that reward. Like, the expenditure of my dopamine is going towards building my willpower, building my will to live, my all of those things that our brain does that's so cool. So yeah, I think that's a very, very good point about trialing and what that does for you. Um, my boyfriend thinks he's going to run Sue, his pointer, in a trial in Tulsa that we'll go to. And he does not like trialing either, because he would rather just be out with his dogs hunting and like doing the real thing. But same thing. It's like at some point you kind of want to see where you are and what you need to work on, if that really is your craft and what you're interested in, or your really insane hobby that you have and what you're interested in. I think it probably warrants knowing, where do I stand.
Yeah. So I did pass this trial. You need 160 out of 200 points. I got 160
Oh.
out of 200 points. So how do I feel about
I liked when
that?
you were like, because you were like, Denise made a bad. Denise said stay before.
I was responsible for a whole lot of those points, which is good because I think in theory I'm easier to fix than the dog.
Yeah.
But the idea that I should be disappointed or concerned, no, I mean, I just got the information I needed to get, and I can like mentally start, because now I'm motivated because
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, this is the big picture. These are the small pictures. I can start kind of sorting. I'm just excited. Like, I don't know that I would feel any different if I'd gotten a really high score. It's like, no, I know what I got to do. I'm back in the training. I spent 20 minutes today working on elements of stay. Who wants to teach stay? I had a great time because I had a really clear mental picture of the things I was working on.
Yeah.
So normally I don't work on stay because it's so damn boring. Put the dog down and then go behind or whatever. It's like, but today I was like 100% focused on a dog doing nothing.
Yeah.
So, and I tell you, a good training day sets the whole rest of my day. It does not matter if I have to drive an hour and a half each direction to get there, wait in
Yeah.
line, do all that. There are 5 good minutes of training, and I'm like happy, so
I,
happy,
I,
worth it.
yeah. I think it's maybe an illness that we have. I'm kidding. I was joking with one of the grandparents at Skijoring that their daughter, who's the mother of the skier that's on Layla's team, they said, you two are a lot alike, her mom and I. and we were kind of comparing some things we'd done growing, but we realized that we were both competitive cheerleaders and that we had traveled around doing, the circuit and stuff like that. And so her grandparents said, we used to joke that we like would drive all around the country and do all of these things for a 3-minute routine. And now we're doing all of it for a 15-second run. I'm like, welcome.
I get it, but
All of this
it,
stuff. I
but
mean, there is nothing better for a child than to spend hours getting ready, hours, 7, 8 hours at a rodeo. You get a couple 15, 16-second runs, and sometimes you can do every single thing perfectly. And this is the time you knock over a barrel, or this is the time. I remember I went to uh I always go to the rodeo in San Antonio, and it's like, to me it's my favorite rodeo. And I remember one year I watched the barrel racers come out. These are the best in the world. I mean, America has obviously best barrel racers in the world. You've got the top women. I have driven all the way here to see them. Every single one of them but one knocked over their barrels. Every single one. And I know for a fact these girls are riding $100,000, $200,000 horses, and they're the best in the world. And it was an interesting thing that stuck in my mind, that sometimes it's just not your day.
and you
It's
better get
just
over
not
it
your
and move
day.
on. Like if you start stewing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll stew in the moment, like, oh, I didn't expect that. That was too hard,
Yeah.
whatever. But then afterwards, I'm just like, I'm gonna learn from that experience, and I mean it. Like it's not just something I say to myself. I mean it. Somebody asked, what will I be working on? The number one thing
Oh
I
yeah,
need to do,
Stephanie.
because
Mm-hmm.
my dog was high as a kite coming on that field. So realistically, I cannot bring him. The trail thing is really difficult to duplicate.
Hmm.
It's hard to explain. There's two ways you can handle it. You can either learn how to bring your dog down so when you go into the trial they're not so high, or you can bring your dog up in training so that they get used to it. So really what I'm working on is both of those. And I'm also incorporating patterns, because he needs to learn that there's no reason to be like this for the first 10 minutes. It's just obedience, right? So I need to get in the habit of always doing obedience first, then jumps, then bite work. And when he internalizes that, then there's no reason for him to be so geared up
Right.
walking through the gate, because he'll start to learn, oh, we got this other 10 minutes to get through.
Mm-hmm.
So I will incorporate more patterns. I think that's going to help him be more calm. At the same time, today when I worked him, I did things that pushed some frustration and unsureness. I asked him to do things in a difficult environment, and I could tell he was not happy about it. And I pushed through, because I'm like, buddy, you can do hard things even when you're feeling scattered. And I pushed. Like, I'm like, no, I know you can do this. You can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I helped him as much as I could, but I didn't walk away from it. I didn't break it down and make it easier. I said, you can do this. And that, I think, is part of teaching him to function when he doesn't have all of his brain power, right? So you get a little bit of
Yeah.
a muscle memory thing going on. So that's kind of the biggest thing. There is another trial in 3 weeks, and that's it. The last trial, literally till the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I don't have time to train it, that's 3 weeks is not enough time. I also don't want to walk away from the opportunity, because otherwise I got 6 months. So I'm thinking there's a decent chance I'll pass again. If I
Right.
pass, I have my title. If I have my title, I go to the next level. And then that actually gives me a lot of training things to work on, rather than just sort of, and then it would be fine if I, back out in October or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I'm at and how I'm approaching it. And you know what? Again, it's a learning opportunity. Let's see what happens next time. Can we all say a small prayer for Denise? And say something like this: say, dear Lord, the next time Denise takes her dog on the field, could you please help her to remember the rules? Because it's not fair to her dog that she keeps messing up. And we know her memory's not very good. So, dear Lord, maybe just on this one day, could you help her have a better memory so she doesn't keep doing this, because it's just not right. And thank you so much for considering my request. And then you all sign off appropriately. And thank you so much. I expect to have 26 prayers heading up right about now.
Exactly now.
I don't know if there's a
So
line like
yes,
where you have to
so
you
you
have to.
can't. Okay, so in dressage or in Western pleasure, you have a like a not a course. That would be eventing. It's like your routine. Your I don't know why I can't think of the word, but I'm going to move on. You have your skills that you're presenting for whatever level that you're at. So there is a it's a test. So you have to remember the test. It's the same with jumping. You have to remember what jumps are what. They have numbers on them, but they'll change them. And they'll be like, all right, this round we're running them backwards. And you have to remember. I have seen girls come off of a jump, come around and stop at the front and go, I forgot the course. I mean, all the time.
I, I don't
Except
even know how they
I,
do it.
well, I have no idea. I have no idea. But I noticed that this one woman, she was my favorite rider every single time. It was a dressage competition, but she would come and compete in Western pleasure. So she's doing the same thing, but just Western saddle, Western stuff. And she was the most incredible horsewoman there every single time. She's probably in her 60s. And she had somebody stand on the side and read her test. And I'm like, I thought maybe she had a disability or something. So I asked, what's up with that? And she goes, oh no, honey, I just know better. I know better. I've been doing this for 40 years and I will forget step two every time. And I'm like, oh wow, you can have somebody read for you. But you can't do that in Mondio, can you? You got, there's, what is that like?
Well, okay, so the one thing, Mondio is different every time. So every trial, the judge sets up a new, you just know you're going to have healing, you're going to have retrieve, you're going to have
Okay.
a stay. You know that. But you don't know what the healing pattern is going to be. You don't know what the retrieve object is going to be. You don't know
Oh,
what the distractions will be around the stay. You know you got food refusal, but you don't know what it could be. A plate full of food slid up to your dog. It could be, in my dog's case, a sausage thrown at his foot. It could be a scatter. You just don't know.
yeah.
And so you really do need to pay attention. Like they have a walkthrough the morning of, and you need to be listening. And many of them will let you videotape it,
Oh,
but you need to listen and pay attention. But the problem is, I have a really hard time remembering things. And then I'm new to the sport, right? I've been doing AKC so long. I don't have to think about anything. I just walk in there. I know the patterns. It's really obvious to me. It's not obvious to me in Mondio.
yeah.
And so I forget a lot of stuff. And you do have a deputy judge, and the deputy judge is your friend. So they're the one that's like, come here. This is where you're going to start.
Mm,
This is your prep line. This is where you're going to go next. So you could ask that person if you were really muddled and
mm-hmm.
confused. You could probably get away with saying, I can't remember. Where do I say stay? Now, they may not work with you, but most of them are on your side,
Mm-hmm.
and especially at the one level. Or if you're like, oh my God, I can't remember the healing pattern. Is it left or right at the barrel? They'll
Oh,
tell you.
okay.
So they're trying to help you out, but you can't ask the
Mm,
judge, and you are supposed to remember it. And some of the rules that I truly didn't know them going in. I actually didn't know you couldn't say stay after you got the object. I didn't know you had to stand behind the certain line over the jump. There's things like that. I just didn't know.
mm-hmm.
Um, I just want to do fewer of those kind of errors
Yeah.
next time. And you know
Wow.
what? It's a process, and we're all going to learn and having a good time with it. Now, there's another
Pointer
sport I'm
trialing's
looking
like
at,
that.
which is called French ring, which
Oh,
has more rules, but the pattern is always the same. The healing is always the
okay.
same. The retrieve objects are. So the advantage there is you can actually
Mm-hmm.
memorize. Like beforehand, you can really memorize it, and then you'll be good to go. So someday I'll probably do that too. Once
Yeah.
I'm done with this thing, I can only hold on so much right now. But I'm glad to be doing stuff. It's cool to have goals. It's cool to be, trying.
Yeah, I am thrilled about all the stuff I'm doing and the things I have to learn. And pointer trialing is hilariously like Mondio. You just don't know. You go, if you so the sixth, whatever weekend that is. I'm going to another trial in Moline, Kansas, which is a little tiny, 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 tiny town about an hour away from me, and it's a pro trial. And what's so interesting is like, so I'll go and I'll be someone's scout, and I have no idea what the course is. And guess how I learn what the course is? By going on the course during the trials. And by about the fourth trial of the day, I finally know the course kind of, and then I'm totally solid on the last trial. Like, oh yeah, I know what this is, and so if you have to scout or you have to go first, you have no
Let
idea
me
where
tell
you're
you,
going. It's
I
weird.
was fifth, I think, fourth or fifth. The first dog that went, I saw something happen that made me go, I'm so glad I wasn't first because I might have made that mistake.
Yeah.
Like the first couple dogs, I realized that's actually a hard place to
Hmm.
be because other people learn from your decisions a little
Absolutely.
bit.
Absolutely. Man,
I
same
mean,
thing with skijoring. You don't want to be first. You want to see a bunch of those people crash out. And then you're like, okay, so we need to not go so fast right there. Ugh, yeah.
so in jumping in horses, do you walk the course? Like, do they have something like that
Mhm.
where they tell you what it is and you can walk
Yes.
it?
So before yeah, and show jumping. I have not done a ton of eventing with Layla, so I can't speak to that. But yeah, and show jumping, you go out there and you look at the course, and there are numbers on the jumps. And so, but yeah, if you don't remember the pattern, they're just meaningless numbers all over. Um, but yeah, you can go out there and look at it. But the thing about show jumping that's so wild is that you've got the arena and the jumps are set up, but they're at different heights. So the jumpers that are just doing, a little foot jumps, they come through, and then they do the course, and then they keep going up and up and up, and before you know it, these jumps are at 3.5 feet, 4 feet, and these show jumping is about who has the fastest time with no penalties, and you've got thoroughbreds running around this arena jumping 4 foot jumps. It's I just that's the time you need to put a helmet on. That's what I always say. That's the time you need to put a helmet on because just so much can go wrong. You're in a really small confined space. It's much more dangerous than skijoring. Skijoring, you're going for the most part in a straight line on a horse that has essentially like cleat shoes on that's trained to run in the snow, and you're not jumping over anything, you're not leaving, it's nothing like that. Show jumping, I have seen the wildest stuff happen. I mean, I saw a horse one time, the last competition we went to, I was like, we no, it just jumped straight into the side of the jump. She didn't center it properly, and it just went straight, like it didn't even see it. I don't know, it's not my thing. It's cool to watch when it's done well. And Layla's
It's
training
just,
is a jumper.
I get this a lot in dog sports. Oh, do dogs get hurt? Yes, dogs get hurt
Yes.
in dog sports. But like everything, I mean, well, does he have to walk with his head up like that? How long does he have to do that? Is that bad for his neck? And at some point, you have to ask, what is it we do in life that doesn't bring risk to the
Yeah.
table? I
Yeah.
mean, you can stay in your house and
Hmm.
probably reduce risk, but there's not much joy in just being safe.
That's
Like,
right.
I don't think of safety as a joy inducing event.
Hmm.
We try to minimize risk. And frankly, I think people get hurt way more than dogs in dog sports. Man, all us middle aged women running around agility, pulling our ACLs, and like
I'll
we're breaking
tell you
things.
right
It's
now,
terrible.
my mom is one of those people, and I love my mother, and she's a wonderful woman, but she's a fear monger. You're gonna get hurt. That's gonna get hurt. You're gonna get that tornado, this car, that crash, and she's always been like that. And I'm sure she has her own reasons, and maybe that's
Yeah.
served her in some way.
That was my
Uh,
mom.
yeah, but I have seen, and my dad was the total opposite. My dad was like, I got my arm chopped off, like just crazy stuff. Crazy things would happen to him because he was just always doing. And I wouldn't say that my parents are conservative. I wouldn't say that my dad's crazy in the way that I am, but he was definitely of the mindset of like, you only live once, and you got to get out there and you got to do stuff, even if you only have one arm, you better get out there. You better play golf, you better fish, you better do stuff like that. So I had a really good example that way. But I see what happens to people that do that, and they do stay inside a lot, and they do miss out on opportunity. And so I have tried to instill in my daughter to, you know, get on the horse and run down the snow track. Because and people are like, well, doesn't that it I can't, like, it's her life. And I know that I'm here to help her be responsible. So the decisions that she makes, I make sure that she's making good ones. I wouldn't put her on a horse that I didn't know to be sound and have tons and tons of experience, and to be 100%. Not, oh, she's good most of the time. Oh, she's to have a horse with a clean track record of being real good, and a good coach and the right people around her. And you just, it's just like we do with our dogs. It's just like when we talk about antecedent arrangements. You set everything up for success as much as you can, and then you send it, because there's that degree of, we can't control everything. We can prepare as best as we can, but at some point you just have to let go of the handlebars, and enjoy the moment.
I respect people who get out there and do this stuff. Even though I know they get hurt, even though some of these things are not for me, I respect their willingness, because life, you get to live it. So good luck with that. Those people you were talking about who are very fearful, my mother and such, who spend a lot of time in the house, except for the obligatory walk, because you have to do that for exercise.
Yeah.
They also, unfortunately, spend a lot of time reaffirming their decisions by going after people who make different
Who make
decisions. I've
different
observed this
decisions. Yeah.
on social media. It's kind, and then they get together and they talk. So, like the way I integrated my dogs, they're doing great now. But I make some choices that some people would say were very risky. That I did it wrong or whatever. And what was interesting is the number of people who then got into a little sub conversation about, yeah, I did that, and my big dog crushed my puppy's skull. Seriously, somebody said that. And then the next person, but they didn't quite say that happened to me too, because that was a bit extreme.
Yeah.
But everybody, like, they had these little, they did a little war story thing. And it was interesting to observe that thread, because it kind of felt like people saying, I'm right, right? I'm right. Not letting that happen, like keeping my ducks up. I'm the right one, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, neither one of us is right. It's two different approaches
Yeah. There
to how
is
you
no
integrate.
right. Yeah.
And there's obviously things you need to know about your dog before you make certain choices, so that they don't crush the skull of the other one. Like, that's like, oh my God.
Oh,
I mean, some things are
horrible.
I mean, some things are really out of the blue, but not that much. But I just thought it was interesting, and I was talking to somebody on the side about this, but privately, and she pointed it out to me, that people who are fearful find other people who are fearful to reinforce that they are the right ones, that they
Oh,
are
yeah.
smart. And my
Yeah.
attitude is, we're all right. We're just
Mm-hmm.
making different choices based on what we value. And do you value safety and comfort? I do. But I also value whatever the opposite of that. I don't want to say risk, because I don't think I'm taking a lot of risks. I just calculated risk, right? That
Yeah.
I get something from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what brings it up for me is the helmet conversation. Like, my daughter doesn't wear a helmet when she rides, and I know people that do and people that don't. One of the women at the barn, she is an older woman. She's in her 70s, and she mentioned to me several times she needs to wear a helmet. And I asked her to tell me a little bit more about her feelings about that. And so she began to explain to me that the last barrel race that she was at, before the one we were at that point in time where we were having the conversation, she said, if I hadn't had my helmet on, then ABC would have happened. And I was like, okay, but what happened? And she told me what happened. And what happened was a massive failure on her part to do basic safety stuff that any rookie rider would know. So she didn't tighten her cinch. And her saddle went blonk, and she fell and hit her head. And she was in a soft arena, but she's an older woman, and I got her point. I got her point that she needed it. And my response was that we have a different approach to riding horses than you do at this point in your life. We ride every single day. This is like drilled into our heads. Our horses are incredibly sound. They do not buck. They do not do any of the weird things. And so our risk is very, very low because of all of the effort that we put in every week. If my daughter is showing up to the barn once a week and going on a thoroughbred that I just randomly bought, she kind of practices with, and ish, oh, beat boot bop, you know, I would consider having a different conversation around it. But if she needs a helmet, she doesn't need to be on that horse. That's the way I feel about it. Or if you're training, if she's training a horse that she's unsure about, she'll put a helmet on,
That's
because if
actually a
she,
really interesting way to look
it
at it. That
really
if
is,
you need
because
the helmet,
most
you
of what
shouldn't
we're
be there.
doing is in a soft arena. I Women will come at me all the time. It's always the nurses. Nurse here. I really would appreciate if you, because you don't know the traumatic brain injuries that I see. And I'm like, tell me the last traumatic brain injury that you specifically saw from a girl running barrels in a soft, freshly dragged arena. I'll wait. And it's never that. It's from they didn't have their seatbelt on in a car accident, or they were rock climbing and they did. It is never they were in a soft dirt arena on a horse that they practice with every single day, and then the horse did, it's never that. And so I started realizing that many of the injuries that are happening are because people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or they're doing them with a horse that isn't ready for that. And so we have a different approach, and that is we do not do things with our horses until they can do basic things. We just don't.
So
um it,
it's cost benefit
yeah,
analysis.
yeah,
It's
because
always, and that is cost benefit analysis by definition is specific to the circumstance. You can't generalize that. So to say how should you integrate dogs, I know my dogs. Like, I can't possibly weigh in on you. I can tell you what I did, why I do it. And I think people struggle with that.
mm-hmm.
There's a question here. Maybe you've gone over this. Denise, with Zen and his arousal, do you
Oh,
give him one
oh
strike
yeah.
or a three strike method? I've never heard that term. I'm not
I
sure
hadn't
what you.
either. I think what they mean is, do you allow for one failure or three? Is that maybe what you
Is
think
that
they
what you
mean?
mean? So the problem is with arousal, it's not usually a matter of failure. There is one thing Zen does that every single time it happens, the result is the same. If he is with me on the field and he leaves me to go see the decoy, he has never left me and bit the decoy, but if he leaves me to go see the decoy, I say nope, and I walk over and I put his leash on and we leave, and he goes back to the car. There's no second chances, no nothing. I started that after his French ring when he ran amok after the trial was over, and I had a hell of a time getting him back. It was bad. He was running the fence line where the decoys had gone, and so that was
And
about a
you're
month ago.
like,
Oh, I know. It's like, I can't believe this. But more important, I learned from it, and I said, I have seen that in training, nothing like that, but I've seen that in training, and that needs to stop, right? So the things I had done until then, no, bring him back, no. I just basically said, if you do that, you don't get to play the game. And it took a couple of weeks, but pretty early on, I knew that it was going to make a
yeah.
difference. Now, in the trial, he did leave me, and I lost another 3 points for that, or whatever I lost. He went 20 feet forward. I stopped. I stayed quiet, which is I had already rehearsed. He came back on his own. I lost 3 points. It was not a big deal. I don't even think it was 5 seconds. And then he healed beautifully down the field, because I'm pretty sure he's like, oh, you're going to put me away. It happened today. I was pushing him really hard in the obedience. He saw the decoy sitting 100 feet away. I saw him looking, and I'm thinking, go ahead, buddy. If that's what you need to do, you're going to land yourself in the car. And he held it together for a few minutes. He was trying really hard. And then, sadly for him, I was about to start bite work in 10 seconds. But he left me. Oh, well, went and got him, put him in the car. So if that's what you mean, it is one strike, but that's the only thing I discipline him for. Like failing exercises, I don't discipline at all. I don't know, work with him, fix it, whatever I have to do. But at least at this point in time, if you're going to use a punisher, and that is a punisher because I'm taking away work to reduce the running off behavior. If I'm going to use a punisher, I really like to only have one in play at a given time, because it to be impactful, you can't, hey, buddy, that's loud. You can't be punishing a bunch of stuff, because it dilutes the impact. I want it to be impactful. There's one thing you may not do. Now, if we get to the point where that's totally good, then maybe if there's something else that's kind of a big deal, I might do it for that. But I just don't like to do that very much. And then I think it's impactful. Do you think Zen has higher arousal than Zeno? In life, Zeno has higher arousal. She sent me a video of him on a walk, and it was a thing to watch. It was intense. He's not like that on a walk. But in work, Zen has higher arousal in work. Zeno has higher arousal in life and is actually quite controllable in the work. Zeno also has much higher will to please and actually cares what his owner thinks. Zen does not have will to please. Zen does not really care if I'm happy with him. He doesn't want me unhappy, but mostly he's self-interested. He's wanting to do the work.
You
Let's
know,
see.
that's
That is
so
called
interesting.
perception.
I would choose the same thing with Enzo. There's some things that you can't do, and if you do them, we're gonna get on out of here. We're gonna, I mean, and I don't do that a lot, but there's just circumstances where I feel like, if we know the rules and you start doing some particular thing, like we just got to go. Sometimes we just need to go. Okay, baseball terms. Oh, I was like, what baseball terms?
Then at the end, the same person asks, do your rewards increase with compliance? No.
Mm,
The reward is being allowed to do bite work.
yeah.
That is so powerful for him that if you do it right, you get to play the game. Now, the one thing that has been a little tricky, and I've had to think about, if he has a perfect session, how do I leave the field? Right? Because leaving the field has now become associated with making a mistake. But eventually I'm happy. So what I do is the very last thing I do is something really fun, really easy. And then instead of like calling him to me or anything, I walk right up to him. I put a toy in front of him. I switch him off the decoy and I play like there's no tomorrow all the way off the field to the car. I keep telling him he's the smartest dog ever. And I make a huge fuss so that there's no
Mm-hmm.
confusion. Whereas when I'm walking him off the field, it's definitely sort of a quiet, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Leash goes on. I don't say anything. I just walk him quietly back to the
Mm-hmm.
car, open the door, in you go. It's very unemotional. So, and I'm not usually an unemotional trainer. So that's what I'm doing with him. Check back in 3 weeks and let's see if I've gotten anywhere. Because you know what? It's a
See if
process. And
she's still whistling the same tune.
I will say this. If he does not leave me even once in the next trial, regardless of the score I get, I'm going to say huge win because now I
Oh,
have something that's
yeah.
big for me. So,
I think he's going to do great. And I think you got all these questions too. No, what did you say? What are you saying you didn't explain? Oh, the rewards increasing with compliance. So, okay. I get asked this question too. Like if the dog is doing better and better and better, do I keep giving more and more and more reward? And I generally will go the opposite way. I like if my dog makes a mistake, like let's say that I recall him. And I'm not a sport dog trainer, by the way. I just want to say that. Like I don't do I am a behavioral consultant. But if my dog is doing a recall and he misses that recall, I'm going to say the cue for you missed your recall, which is the only time I ever use it. And I say, here's the cue. Listen carefully. You missed your recall. And then he hears it and he comes back and then he gets a big jackpot of food. Generally, the next time I recall him, he comes back faster. And that's why, because I'm trying to increase the likelihood that then the next time he will respond more. So he always gets food,
right,
even if it takes him
right.
2 minutes to get
Because
back.
it's
And
done.
mm-hmm,
The
mm-hmm.
error is done. It
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
actually
over.
matter. Um, Reward isn't, I always verbally reward my dog. We have I have a lot of connection there. I don't usually use food because food is not a reward for my dog.
Mm-hmm.
It's a marker of good behavior, but it's not a reinforcer. As a matter of fact, I had to train him that if he didn't take food, he couldn't get out of the car. So it's like you have no option about it. You'll eat the
Yeah.
cheese or we don't start. So it's now a trained behavior. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very generous in training with my reward schedule, just in general. I would say 80% of my recalls, my whistles are rewarded with huge. I run with the toy. I make it big.
Yeah.
Um, I reinforce probably half of my obedience exercises in training. The reason I don't reward half is so he gets used to that. Like, oh, you were such a good boy. Let's move on. He needs to understand that doesn't mean anything's
Mm-hmm.
wrong. It's just, but I would say compared to other trainers that I observe in the ring world around me, I am much more generous and much bigger in my reward. So instead of holding out a toy to the side and letting the dog grab it and go through, I'm running. My dog is chasing me down like a rabbit. Because I don't want him to ever start weighing out the value of what he got out there with the decoy and what I offer. Because I will never bring the value that a decoy brings. I just can't. So what I have is habit on my side, and I got to keep that habit strong. I also have some ideas to mess around with that to make him even stronger, but we'll see. Give me some time and we'll see what I can do. But you know what, Jerri? Instagram's going to cut us off in 5 minutes.
I can't stop thinking about it. I'm going to be thinking about that. I've got habit on my side. Very good. Yeah, I have a webinar tomorrow, everyone. We have
it's such a big one.
Software app checked. Everything's good. We're good to go. And I'm going to be teaching a little bit about social media. I can't wait for the Q&A. That's the part that I'm really...
You are going to be walloped with questions. People are going to have
I'm so excited.
Many questions because so many of us, including myself, wing it on social media. And you have strategy. And so many trainers that I know of, good trainers who deserve to have lots of work and such, they really cannot figure out how to leverage social media. They should be great. And sometimes the trainers that I think should probably not be training dogs anymore have very impactful and effective social media presence. So it's huge. It's huge. So I think what you're going to teach, I'm super excited. Hopefully, maybe I'll even learn something because, I'm a slow learner. I am a little bit slow, but I'm going to try. And I've heard some other people talking about it. So I think it's going to be a good time too. It's just going to be fun and light and a good time.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal is to keep it, it's a difficult topic. It's hard for a lot of people to understand. So there needs to be some humor, in there. But the one thing I want people to walk away knowing is, it's not a talent that you just have. It's a skill that you learn. It's a set of things that you learn, just like any other livelihood or industry or whatever. And everyone can improve. Every single person can improve. You don't have to do it the way I do it. You don't have to try to have hundreds of thousands of followers. I made just as much money. I've always made the same amount of money. I make it in different ways now, and I don't work as hard to make that money, which is really meaningful to me. But I made just as much money when I had 30,000 followers on Instagram. I was, it was different again, but so that's the point is everybody come, it doesn't matter what you do, you can come and learn and ask me whatever you've always wanted to ask. But my apprentice said something to me yesterday and I stopped and really thanked her. I was teaching her how to do some things and she had an assignment due and she's one of my apprentices. I have about 5 of them. And she said, I had no idea. She goes, it just took me an hour and a half to edit a 5-minute video. She's like, I had no idea this is what you guys are doing. When I see your content, she's like, is this what you're doing? And I'm like, yes. I spend 4 or 5 hours a day on social media. It's just hours and hours. I spend hours talking to my clients. I spend hours. It is another job if you want to do it at the level that I do it, and most people are not going to do that. So I want to also make people aware of that aim for the place you want to be. You may not want the workload that comes along with what I'm doing. So we'll see. We'll see what creative little questions they have for me.
Oh, I think it's going to be awesome. So it's at Fenzi Dog Sports Academy. Send me a note or send Jerri a note if you need the direct link, and we'll get you all set up.
We will. All right, we're getting kicked out.
All right. Talk to you later.
We'll be back. Oh, who are we going to be back next is Lindsay.
Oh,
we were going
to be awesome.
I know. I need to go back in there and look at that message. She was the one that was doing that study.
Got to read the research.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll do that tonight.
Okay.
All right.
Bye everybody. Guys.